As you can see, it's so full, I couldn't even close it and latch it. I got a big trip ahead of me. And I wanted to make sure I took everything that I needed for this trip. Everything that I could possibly ever need for this trip. Where am I going? To the future. That's where. We're all going there. Not in a time machine or as part of a science fiction story or something. Just to the future. We're always arriving there and then departing once again. The future is, after all, a moving destination. Jamie Lee Curtis wrote a book about the future, although it was the future of someone in the past. You know Jamie Lee Curtis, the actress. She's probably best known for the Halloween movies, or maybe yogurt commercials. She has a second career now, or third if you count Activia. She writes children's books like this one. And Trish clued me into this when we met a couple of weeks ago to talk about what she and Ken were going to perform today. And I had told her that my theme for the sermon was going to be identity. And that brought to mind for her this book, This Is Me, which is about a grade school classroom in which the kids are learning about their immigrant ancestors, their grandparents, and great-grandparents who had come to America from some other country. And they learned about how those immigrants might have had, those refugees in often cases, might have just one suitcase that they were able to take with them, that they could fill. And so they had to choose very carefully what they wanted to bring with them. What would fit in that suitcase? And what would they leave behind to say goodbye to forever? And then the kids in the book are asked to consider for themselves what they would take with them in that kind of situation. And only as much as would fit into a small child's suitcase. And they had to make some hard choices. Well, as any good book does, this one got me thinking about what is so important to me that I absolutely, positively find a way to fit it into my own little suitcase. So let's look. Well, here, this is Blanky. This blanket has been with me as long as my memory goes back. It's from the 70s, so I don't know what this material is. It's not just cotton, that's for sure. But I still get a lot of comfort from seeing it or having it nearby and being able to hold it when I need to. It brings back to me memories of home, of childhood, of family. So of course I want to take Blanky. Let's see what else I've got here. I've got my medications. Medications. A lot of us have medications. I have, well, Advil because I get headaches, and that's no reflection on Tim at all. I've got some allergy medicine. I have high blood pressure, so I take a little high blood pressure pill every day. I've suffered from depression all my adult life and probably into my childhood, so I have my antidepressant there. My health, the things that I've had incidents of my health, good health, ill health, that's all been a part of me. It's part of my identity. So I have to take those with me, of course. Let's see what else is here. Books. Oh, books that mean something to me. I wanted to put more in here, but I can only fit a couple. But books, books that mean something to you, that really have affected your life, that have raised emotions in you while you were reading them. Or books are also a symbol of learning, and learning has always been an important part of my life. So I want to take some books with me. What else here? Oh, my laptop. My laptop. This has all my photos on it. All my photos are on here. And photos are memories. They're memories of family, friends, places I've lived, places we've traveled. So that's important. It's also what I write on. And so it's also the instrument I use to sort things out when I'm thinking things through. Oh, and if I'm going to have that, Tom will be excited to see this. I got my phone. My phone. This is my contact with people that I love far away. All their contact information is how I talk to them, how I video chat with them, how I send them texts and emails. It's also how I take those pictures that I then save on my laptop. So this is important to me. I got to have my phone. Let's see what else is here. Yes? Well, what if I get hungry? What if I get hungry? I got to have a snack. That's pretty prudent idea. I've got this cross that I wear. I wear it every day. It's a reminder of my faith. It's just a cheapy little cross. It reminds me of my faith. It's a cross, so it reminds me that Jesus, who hung on one of these crosses, overcame the powers of death and destruction in our world. And it reminds me that I too am called to overpower those forces of death and destruction. So I gotta have that. Gotta have that. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, clippings and photographs. This is history. This is history. Some of it is pictures, old black and white photos of ancestors, of my family, even pictures not that long ago, but before digital. There's something about holding history, especially your own history, in your hands. So I want to take these with me. Oh, what else have I got here? Now this is kind of macabre, and you're going to think it's weird, but these are the ashes of one of our pets. This is Cooper, our dog. He was my best friend for 14 years. He saved my life, metaphorically and maybe literally more than once. And I've got ashes for Cooper and our cat Girl and our dog Booty. And as the time goes on, I don't have ashes of any people in my life because I've not reached that point in my life where I've lost those very important people and have their ashes. But those will come along, and so I want to make sure I have those. I don't want to leave those behind. Oh, there's more, there's more. Oh, unfinished projects. Unfinished projects. These got to get done someday. And then there's clothes. I guess that's pretty practical to bring some clothes with me too. Did I get everything? Well, that's what I chose to put in my suitcase. That's what I chose. These are objects, to be sure. They're objects. And we're supposed to not be too tied up in material things, right? Our relationships, people we love, they're more important than objects, right? But the things that we hold dear to us, the things, tell us an awful lot about who we are. What we decide to put in our suitcases to carry with us into the future, says those things say a lot about our identity. The person I have become to this point and the person I am becoming. The early Jesus followers had to figure out what to put in their suitcase, what to carry forward into the future and what to leave behind. In today's scripture reading, we see them arguing about one thing in particular. It's a big thing. Whether Gentile, which means non-Jewish, just anyone who wasn't Jewish was referred to as Gentile. Whether Gentile converts to the way of Jesus should have to first convert to Judaism. So at this point in the story, this segment of Acts, it's been a few years since Jesus walked the earth, since the crucifixion and the Easter event. The ever-expanding core of disciples has been traveling farther and farther afield, spreading the gospel, the good news of Christ, and what Christ has done in their lives. And despite the fact that the translation that we read today uses the phrase Jewish Christians, that word Christian was not yet in use at that time. These were Jews, devout Jews, just like Jesus was a Jew. And yet, they weren't ordinary, everyday Jews. These Jews believed Jesus had changed the world. They believed that Christ had transformed it. They believed their own lives would never be the same, and they wanted the world to know how wonderful that was. And if other Jews weren't going to listen to them, then they'd reach out to Gentiles and spread the good news to them. And as these early Jesus followers, as their beliefs and their movement began to transform, they realized that their suitcase was getting awfully full. maybe too full, like mine. Couldn't even close the lid. They had to decide what to keep and what to discard. For instance, should non-Jewish people interested in following the teachings of Jesus have to convert to Judaism in order to belong? And just so you know what all that entails, that converting to Judaism, remember that men would have to be circumcised, and everyone would have to follow what were considered some very strange dietary restrictions. And you better believe this was an impediment to the conversion of Gentiles, especially Gentile men. So the Jewish Jesus followers had to decide, was it more important to change the lives of the Gentiles through Jesus Christ, or was it more important to follow the old rules and do things the way you're supposed to do them? Eventually, Christians decided that the former was more important. Changing lives was more important. The process wasn't easy. It was contentious. It was hard. But that decision eventually stuck. Now, the Jesus followers' predicament is a good example of how what we leave behind is just as important in shaping our identity as what we decide to keep in our suitcases and lug around with us. We've all made conscious decisions to leave stuff behind. Relationships, geographic locations, jobs, addictions, mindsets, hurts. For instance, I left behind my hometown. Not that I don't have fond memories of it. Not that I won't ever go there again. My parents still live there. My sister and her family live there. We visit there. Tim and I visit there at least once a year. When I go, I get very nostalgic. I reminisce, and even as we're driving there and we get close, I just feel a sense of calm spread over me. So I love it. I love my hometown. But I decided a long time ago that I could never go back and live there. For reasons financial, geographical, family, political, sociological, I'm certain that I could not live in that town again. Maybe that will change someday. Maybe circumstances and situations will evolve or morph in ways that the idea of moving back to my hometown would seem desirable, or more likely necessary. A few years ago, both my parents and Tim's hit a rough patch in their health, all four of them at the same time. And we considered, if only for the briefest moment, moving back to one or the other of our hometowns. Now that thought lasted about as long as a snowflake in July. But we did decide that we should consider moving within a day's drive of each of our hometowns. Put a circle around both towns, one in Kansas, one in Nebraska, and where those circles intersected, that would be the territory we would look at. So that changed for us. Now that crisis blessedly has passed, and we are not in the same situation. But it's an example of how decisions we've made about what to keep in our lives and what to discard can change over time, be revisited, and be reconsidered. New and renewed choices are made again and again. The church does that. I'm talking about the universal church here. Those early Jesus followers, the ones who truly actually started the Christian church, began the process by deciding that their suitcase couldn't hold the Jewish scriptural laws, the ones that Moses brought them. Those laws were too big, too heavy, too cumbersome. Those traditions were too much to impose on others. But like most anything, that didn't mean the case's contents were settled forever. Over the centuries, the church continued to add to its belongings, and occasionally the suitcase had to be culled once again. I won't bore you with a recitation of church history here, unless you want me to. All right. Suffice it to say that every doctrine, every creed, every decision about which books to include in the Bible and which to throw out, every time someone says, you're a Christian and you're not, every one of those is an example of the decision-making about what to carry into the future and what to leave behind. It happened when the church in the Eastern Mediterranean world broke with the Western church in Rome. That was a thing called the Great Schism. It happened when Martin Luther nailed his 99 Theses on a church door and started the Protestant Reformation. It happened when the great American denominations of the 1800s broke apart over the issues of slavery and abolition. In each of these cases, the different parties were making different decisions about what to keep and what to leave behind. Our church does the same thing, and now I'm talking about our church now, this little church on the hill. We continue to discern and discover our identity over time as we make decisions like ones that we'll discuss later today at our congregational meeting. We'll decide whether to add some things to our suitcase. Maybe we'll decide to just leave our suitcase as it is. Maybe we'll decide to take some things out and say, it's been nice to know you, but we're moving on. You too have left stuff behind. You have made conscious decisions about what to keep carrying. At times, our suitcases get unbearably heavy. Unbearably heavy. We stuff them full of things we can't do without. Good things like happy memories and relationships, as well as some unhealthy things like grudges and hurts. Some things we've slipped in there without even realizing we did it. Things like our own insecurities. And some things are put in there against our will. Abuses, cruelties done to us. But regardless of the origins of our things, they all are a part of making us who we are. Each and every one of them is a sliver of our identity. The good news is that just like we make conscious decisions about putting stuff into our suitcases, or whether to keep them there, we have the power and the authority to take things out, to set them aside, and to say goodbye to them. Take, for instance, this stuff. On further consideration, I've got way too many things in here for the long haul. And I hope it's a long haul. I can't be lugging all this stuff around into the future. So I have to make some choices. I'm going to have to leave some stuff behind. Oh. Maybe I don't need quite so many clothes. That whole God will provide thing, I suppose, will leave that here. Blank. You know, I don't enjoy actually wrapping up in this or anything anymore. I don't know what it is made of. But maybe since it gives me a good feeling, I could maybe take a remnant of it. That's what the early church did. When they decided to leave behind the Mosaic Law, they didn't throw it all away. You've heard of something called the Ten Commandments. They kept part of it. Oh, I suppose these books, I've read them, some of them more than once. Are they just trophies now? Medication, that's going. My cross I'll wear. What do you think? Do these need to go?
Yes.
See, we all make our own decisions, but do these just make me feel bad? Or are they really important? I suppose the intangible memories of my loved pets and people are more important than the physical remains. And as people pass on in my future, I don't think I can keep adding. So that'll stay. Oh, I want to keep my photos and my phone. Yeah. Oh, snacks. God provides. All right, let's see now. Is this going to be a little easier? That's much lighter, much more manageable. The choices weren't easy, but now I know a little bit more about myself than I did at the start of the exercise. You can edit your suitcase. It's not just a matter of making it lighter. By considering what you are carrying around with you into the future, You are doing the intentional, thoughtful, and essential work of discerning your identity. What makes you, you? And what really no longer has bearing in your life that you need to carry around? They say that it's the journey that's important, not necessarily the destination. Well, packing is just as important a part of the journey as are the stops along the way. So this week, pull out your metaphorical luggage and start packing or unpacking. Take some stuff out, put some new stuff in, then let's get on the road. There's a lot of future out there waiting for us.